Okay.
Gotta upgrade the animals.
There's a whole movie on
Yeah.
these concussions.
Oh, God. It's sad.
Is it Will Smith? Was
Yeah.
The doctor who.
Okay.
Yeah, he had to fight. Yeah.
We're getting all framed up here.
Oh, listen.
And here we go. Hello, YouTube. You look a little crooked to me tonight. See if I can straighten you
want one
out.
of us to adjust it after you sit down?
I got it, thank you. Okay. Howdy, out there in TV land. How we all doing tonight?
Great.
Everybody good? Let's get gooder. Might be a good time to double check your phone. Your phone's off.
Just did it again.
So, Yafa and I got back 2 nights ago from, we were on vacation in Italy for 2 weeks.
Oh, wonderful.
It was great. So I'm still a tad jet lagged.
I bet.
So if in the middle of the meditation, there's like a really long pause, and you haven't heard any instructions for a while, and after a while you start to hear some snoring,
You get a little tap.
yeah, he hit me with the Zen stick. For
Deal.
just
You may wake up to find out you have no more cookies left.
it's 3 in the morning.
Did you cross the street in Roma?
We were not in Rome. We were in the north. We were
Oh,
up in the
Florence.
the Florence, Venice, Siena. One night in a villa in the Tuscan countryside.
Oh, how wonderful.
To rendezvous with a friend for his birthday. He had a big birthday. He and his wife.
How great.
And then down along the coast to Porto Venere, which that was my favorite, and Portofino.
Portofino, I've been.
Yeah, it's just gorgeous. And
It
then
is.
back up around to Milan and on the plane.
Yeah,
It was great.
that's wonderful.
I'm very blessed with a wife of many talents, including the fact that she could have been like a 5-star travel agent if there was still such a thing as travel agents. And so she laid out the whole itinerary so that every day it was really rich, there was really good stuff going on, but it was never rushed.
Oh,
It
that's
was-
wonderful.
We never felt like we were running around like
I
checking
hate
off
that.
boxes to accumulate experiences.
Right.
Which
You
really
just wanna-
kind of misses it. Yeah. So yeah, it was really great. It was great. Did I mention the gelato?
No.
Oh,
Oh, I bet that was good.
great gelato, great pasta, and great coffee. Hey, we could walk up to, you walk
Oh.
in what they call a bar there. You walk into any bar and, we ask for, due cappuccini, or due, what else did we get? Macchiato, due macchiati, and oh yeah, it was great.
I love seeing the little dogs sitting with the people.
The little dogs? Oh man,
Yeah,
I missed the little dogs.
You missed
Got
the
hosed
little
again.
dogs. They
Gotta
were
go back.
sitting with they sit with their little mistresses at coffee
Yeah.
in a chair
Oh, I
right
missed
at the
that.
table.
Oh.
When
And
you were
then
drinking cappuccinos, the little dogs only drink espressos.
Yeah.
Yeah. Because they're little.
And
Right.
and then in the I was went to one restaurant where a lady was just this gorgeous woman, and she had this beautiful Afghan.
Uh-huh,
So it was very fashionable.
right. The one thing is apparently there's a law that every Italian is required to smoke. So there is some, attempting to dodge the cigarette smoke.
Oh.
It's not very successful. Yeah.
Still,
They don't smoke in the restaurants and buildings anymore, but out on the street.
On the street.
It's pretty omnipresent. But you know what you don't see anywhere? You don't see dog poo.
that's good.
I mean, I saw 2 piles of dog poo today walking from here to the Starbucks 2 blocks away, which is how much dog poo I saw all over Italy in 2 weeks.
I thought people were getting better about that. In our neighborhood they are.
Yeah, ours too.
Yeah, maybe they are. Maybe they are.
About 15, 20 years ago, there used to be dog
Oh,
poop
yeah,
all
everywhere.
over Venice before they
Yeah.
had this law. And somebody went around and spray painted the dog poop, all these bright neon colors
Really?
and sparkly colors. And you walk to the beach and it was just this colorful, beautiful.
Oh my God,
That's
how
brilliant.
funny.
Spray paint the dog poo.
Somebody
Yeah,
was
these
on
like,
LSD.
electric colors, these wow, vivid metallics.
That's such a Venice solution.
Yeah,
It
yeah.
really
right.
is.
That's great.
It is.
That's great. And you don't see homeless people on the street.
You don't.
And it really gave me kind of a shock, a kind of
I-
perspective that
I
when
bet.
people come here from those countries to America, which they're told is the most prosperous nation on earth, and we've got the homeless people living in the streets.
Thousands.
Yeah, how do they put that together? I don't know how to put that together.
We don't take care of our people?
300,000
Yeah.
300,000 in
in LA.
LA County? Wow. Okay, so
No, not 300,000.
having,
Maybe, I think something like 30,000.
Yeah.
Maybe.
Still, you don't see them
A
in
bunch.
the country.
I'm not,
A bunch.
I'm not good with
300,000
math.
is
A
that's
bunch.
a lot.
I'm not good
Yeah.
with the zeros and the.
a bunch.
Yeah.
So, let's start with a little on-ramp into our natural sitting tonight. So sitting comfortably. And let's start with my favorite mantra. So deep breath. And again. Really deep breath. Feel just puff up your body. Fill it up all the way and then and have the feeling as that sound is going out that it's not just going out your mouth, it's going out your eyeballs and your ear balls and your nose balls and just every pore of your body all over 360 degrees. Just relief, just letting go out into boundless space in all directions. So again, breathing in. You can close your eyes if you like. And one more. One more chance to drop everything. And of course, there's always another chance. So what do we do next? We don't do anything next. We're already here. present. We're already aware. Otherwise you wouldn't hear this voice. So we have aware presence, as always. That's all we need. Aware presence is the thread running through all the moments. Everything else changes, everything else comes and goes, all the stuff we're aware of. The sound of the jet going overhead is different from one moment to the next. The whole multi-sensory experience of any one moment is unique. There's no other moment like it. It's all changing, all the time, all by itself. Yet running through it all is this aware presence. We're present, we're aware. So we can always rest in that. That simple. You can always park here. It's like the free parking space on the Monopoly board. But it's always here. Doesn't mean we have to stop the other stuff from going on. We can't stop the other stuff. We can't change or control or predict the other stuff, and we don't have to. All perfect just as it is. Whatever's there is a feature of aware presence. It's a mode of awareness. It's a feature, not a bug. So we're just completely open and neutral and welcoming to whatever presents itself. To the senses, seeing, hearing, smelling, tasting, touching. To the mind, to the emotions. Open, welcoming, neutral. Not particularly paying any of it much attention. Because we know whatever comes and goes is going to be perfect. So it doesn't much matter what it is. All that matters is resting in this awareness, this presence. Which is really resting in yourself. You are the presence, you are the awareness. The one that's aware, the experiencer. And this aware presence, which you are, is not a body, it's not a mind. The body is one more thing we're aware of. The mind, with all its thoughts, is one more thing we're aware of. Nothing to figure out here. Bottom line is, everything's fine. Just relax back into yourself. Open like open space. With room for everything. Just like the space in a room. Doesn't matter if there's a big clutter of objects in the room, or few or no objects in the room, the space is still the space. Nothing that appears or happens within the space of the room can increase or decrease the space, or enhance it or damage it. So nothing to do but rest back into yourself, rest back into this awareness, this presence, which is like open space. Any feelings or emotions that happen to turn up, whether peacefulness or restfulness, restlessness, joy, depression, fine. They're just like different objects moving through the space of the room. Someone carries a flower pot through the room, someone carries a tea kettle through the room. It's all the same to the space. Same with thoughts. Whether a thought about this big thing or that little thing, that lovely thing, that annoying thing. Just different objects being carried through the space of the room we call awareness, presence. None of it matters to the space. Even if the room is crammed full of things, crammed full of objects, the space is empty. Space is emptiness, that's its nature. So we can notice that our awareness is like that. When it's crammed with thoughts and noises, whatever, or not, it has the same nature. It can only get crammed with those objects because it's totally empty all the time. So just notice that awareness is like that. And rest in that perfect, simple emptiness, which is not interrupted by the presence of anything. Anytime you find yourself struggling with something or resisting something, trying to figure something out, just relax your grip on it. that simple. Don't try to get rid of it or resolve it, just relax your grip on it and relax back into yourself. Relax back into this aware presence, like open space. feel you've gone off on some long train of thoughts, there's nowhere to come back to. They're always right here. All those thoughts have been happening within this aware presence, as everything does. There's never any distance to travel to it. How do you travel to yourself? Just rest in yourself, let go into yourself. as always, take a few minutes before slowly opening the eyes. Just bringing the body back to a more active state. Okay, how's everyone doing? Any questions? Anything on your mind? When we were in Florence, we were staying just off the corner of what's the big square called there?
I can't remember.
Okay, something Italian. And and right there in the square is a wonderful big open loggia, which is just like big open porch with a number of old original wonderful statues, and the copy of Michelangelo's David. That's originally where the David stood, but they had to move it
Where is he now?
because now it's in the Academy of Art. They had to move it because Italian men would get angry at it for being so beautiful, and they would throw things at it. So they had to move it inside. So of course we went to see the David, and we've all seen images of that. We've all seen drawings and photos of that all our lives, and you think you know what the David looks like. And my experience was, you get in the presence of the actual thing and you go, there is no substitute for the direct experience. It's so, first of all, it's so big. I had no idea it was so big, but it's so beautiful. You just want to sit down and say, I'm not going anywhere else anytime soon. There's no, where can I go from here and see anything more beautiful? Why would you leave? I mean, it was really like that. And by the way, he made it when he was 29, out of a piece of marble that had been rejected by another sculptor.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah, isn't this amazing? But what's also interesting, and everyone the pose with the one hand kind of near his hip and the other one resting on his shoulder. And it's not always, I don't think everyone's clear that what's going on with his hands. Remember, this is David who slew Goliath,
Right.
and with his slingshot, right, with his sling and a rock. And in this hand, he's actually holding a rock, but the rock is kind of hidden. You really have to get around behind him to see it. And this hand is holding his the sling,
Sling.
which is kind of draped diagonally across his back. And I thought, oh, that's interesting. Here is all this power. Here's all this, what in physics they call, there's kinetic energy and there's potential energy, right? There's the stuff happening and then there's the potential for the stuff happening. But it's all just resting in repose. And you look at his face and it's so peaceful for someone who's doing battle with a giant. And one of the things we read about it is that the big controversy, which has been going on since Michelangelo's time, is this a representation of David just before he slays Goliath or after he slays Goliath?
Oh.
Pretty interesting, right? Is it like, okay, now it's done and now I can rest and be in this complete peace, this complete repose? Or I'm about to do the deed and I'm in complete peace, complete repose? No one knows the answer. Everyone thinks, a lot of people think they know the answer. I have my answer.
What's your answer?
My answer is it's both. It's both. Because like anything that is that sublimely beautiful, of course there's some quality of what we're exploring here in our meditation, some quality of that shining through, that the sublime transcendent.
Wow.
Anything that we respond to that powerfully must have some quality, and that universally. There's that quality of that deep truth, that deepest, simplest truth of what we are, that complete peace, that complete repose. And it's, and by the way, he's the most gorgeous man you've ever seen. You can
Right.
see why they throw rocks at him. And that would be great if we could, dig up Michelangelo and interview him and find out my theory's right.
Right.
Because that would, to me, that would be a really vivid representation of awakening. That you're just completely resting in aware presence, just completely, before whatever wild, crazy, active thing happens that you have to do, and after, and during, for that matter. Right? You do whatever you have to do, but it doesn't mean we have to get crazy or overwhelmed by it, or just you seeing the need and whatever it is, whatever needs to be done, you do it. I remember people asking my old teacher Maharishi Mahesh Yogi, they once asked him, they said, what is the action of an enlightened person like? And you might think, oh, it's, I don't know what you might think, but what he said really, he really caught my attention. He said the action of an awakened person fulfills the need of the time. Right, that simple. Fulfills the need of the time. It's there's stuff that needs to be done, and you do it, and done. It doesn't ruffle you. You just in repose like David. But because you're going to be in repose, because you're going to be resting in that peace, no matter before, during, and after, no matter what, then that frees you up to do actions that fulfill the need of the time rather than fulfill some emotional neediness of yours, because you don't have neediness anymore, right? Or to fulfill some, you know, small personal agenda, or some, you know, get back at people or score points or show how smart you are, or show how cool you are, or, you know, all the you know, we've all experienced doing things for small reasons and doing things for bigger, more elevated reasons. Doesn't it feel better to do things for the more elevated reasons? So to me, it's lovely to have that thing as, oh, just the expression of that, the embodiment of that. It's great. 29 years old. We also saw at the other end of Michelangelo's career, his last sculpture.
How old was he then?
He was, I think, 80 something. And this last sculpture was one that he did to be over his own tomb. So he was definitely looking at the end of life, the end of his career. And it's a Pieta. Was this in the Uffizi? Somewhere.
No, it was, yeah, in Florence though.
It was in Florence, yeah, I think in the Uffizi. I just like saying Uffizi. So it's a Pieta, right? It's the you know, the dead Jesus when he's been
Pieta.
brought down from the cross, and the Blessed Virgin is with him. And above them, looking over him, wearing a hood, was one of the saints. I forget which one. But the model for that saint was Michelangelo himself. He worked his own self-portrait into this, so it would be looking down on his own tomb for
How fabulous.
eternity. Yeah. So this was like really like clearly the signature piece to write the end at the end of his career. And he worked on it for 9 years. And he was still working on it, and one day he was working away somewhere, I think around the hand, and he went, and suddenly he realized, with the next piece that he took out, he realized there was a flaw running through this block of marble. A fatal flaw. And that he could not complete this thing correctly. And that this thing that was supposed to be his and looking over him for eternity was irreversibly, incurably messed up. And he went into a rage and he took his hammer and he just started beating the thing.
No.
Yeah. Yeah. And you
They
can
fixed it?
yeah, they fix it up, they patch it, but if you look carefully, you can kind of see the seams where they put it back together. And it's unfinished. There's bits of it around the edges that are still just kind of rough, unfinished stone. And it's beautiful. And it's so... You know, it's interesting that we also saw some other unfinished statues of his. It's a series of slaves, portraits of slaves. And they're all, you look this up, you can find photos of these online. Just look up, you know, Michelangelo slaves. And because they're all like the part behind them and around them is still like rough rock. It's just, you know, he's roughly chiseled out, you know, very approximate shape. And then, you know, toward the front, they're more finished, but not completely finished. And they're all in, you know, poses of like pain and agony and being, you know, in bonds, right? And there's an argument about these too. The one side is that, well, he just didn't get around to finishing them. The other side, which is no, they're great that way. They're great unfinished. Because it's like this, it's like the slaves in their bondage, they're like bound in the stone. It's like in their struggle, they're struggling to get free of the stone. It's fantastic. And you know, that's us too. That's us. You know, it's as if, okay, David is us awakened. David is us when we get free, when we, you know, there's an old joke about, supposedly someone said to Michelangelo, how did you make this beautiful thing? How did you make this David? He said, well, I took a block of marble and I just chiseled away everything that didn't look like David. But that's the end. That's a representation of the end point. You know, that's when we're done. That's when we're cooked. When we're liberated and we're in that perfect repose and that perfect beauty of, you know, even if outwardly we can't all be as physically beautiful as David, but he's a representation of that consciousness, and that consciousness is beautiful. Is that beautiful? That's sublime all the time. And then but that's the end point of the process. In the beginning of the process, you know, it's like we're struggling to free ourselves. Everything, it's like we're caught in the rock. It's heavy. We're stuck in patterns, and how do I get out of this? It's pretty great.
Sounds like a good trip.
Yeah, it was a great trip. I think my favorite spot in the whole trip was in Porto Venere, the Port of Venus. You've been there?
No, just Portofino.
Portofino, yeah. Yeah, so this is a little bit down the coast from Portofino. So the Port of Venus, and on what they call the I think the Golfi dei Poeti, Golfo dei Poeti, something like that. Golfo dei Poeti, the Gulf of Poets.
Wow.
Yeah, and literally poets. Lord Byron, Percy Bysshe Shelley, his wife Mary Shelley, who wrote Frankenstein. All of these English poets, this is where they hung out.
Wow.
Yeah. And in fact, Shelley died there in a mysterious boating accident, which has still not been, the mystery of exactly what happened has not been solved to this day. But Lord Byron was a tremendous swimmer, and there's a spot there, and this was my favorite spot. They call it now Byron's Grotto, and there's a little kind of arch and a little plaque you walk through, and you walk down the rocks, and you sit on this spot on the rocks overlooking the water, and that's where he would sit and contemplate the sea, meditate on the sea, and write his poetry. And then he would take off his clothes and he would swim across the bay to the next town. He was an incredible swimmer. So I didn't do that, but I sat in that spot.
That's good.
You wouldn't be seeing me. But I sat in that spot, and boy, there was really power there.
I bet.
You know, it was just, okay. I mean, really, for me, I mean, everything we did was great. But the two places where, okay, I could just sit here forever, were at the feet of the David and there in Byron's Grotto. It was just, And there's spots like that, you know, there seem to be places like that that are just kind of places of power. Good. What else? Having a quiet night tonight. I'm told that the World Series is going on. Everyone else is watching the World Series, hoping to see them score some touchdowns or,
Home
I don't know,
runs.
hole-in-ones, whatever they do.
Home runs.
Yeah. Yes.
Describe the difference between meditating with some kind of clarity and just spacing out.
Can I describe the difference between meditating with some clarity and just spacing out? Huh? What'd you say? Anytime we're sitting with our eyes closed, or open for that matter, anything can happen. Anything can happen. It's, you know, the states, mental states are constantly changing. Everything, as we were saying in the meditation tonight, everything is constantly changing except that, for lack of better words, that field of open aware space within which all the states happen, within which all the experiences of the senses, the mind, the emotions, they all happen on that, as it were, empty stage. They all come and go. No two moments of experience are the same. So, if we talk about spacing out, that is, there we're describing some process, some changing process, some phenomenon of a changing state. Going down the rabbit hole of, you know, following certain thoughts or dreams or something, maybe some sleepiness. I had a few nice moments of dreaming and napping in the meditation here tonight. It was great. You know, and then kind of, oh yeah, all right, give a couple of instructions here. Experience some more sleep as I'm recovering from my jet lag. Now, and I am addressing this, I'm kind of talking around it a little bit. Many of you ever experienced, maybe in some of these sessions here together, that falling asleep, okay? Okay, good, falling asleep. When we've experienced falling asleep all our lives, but you may have noticed, have you noticed, and we're kind of in the right conditions usually here to maybe notice it with a little more clarity, that the coming and going of sleep is like the coming and going of anything else. Like the coming and going of the sound of an airplane passing overhead. The coming and going of a thought or a series of thoughts. Yeah, okay, a couple of people saying yes. That sleep, and this is a subtle thing, but it becomes more and more clear that sleep is not a lack of experience. Sleep is an experience. It's one more experience. It's a mental state. Like any mental state. Like a state of tension or a state of restlessness or a state of, you know, sometimes we feel fuzziness. And we tend to identify with those. We say, well, I'm fuzzy. I can't have meditation with clarity tonight because I'm fuzzy. I'm spaced out. But how do you know you're fuzzy? you're experiencing the fuzziness. That's how you can say I'm mentally fuzzy tonight. You are experiencing the fuzziness. That right there is a demonstration that you're something behind the fuzziness. You're not you're aware, the awareness which you are is not the fuzziness, it's not fuzzy, it's that which, it's like, we have the things that we see with our vision, right? We're aware of the picture and the picture frame, we're aware of the rug, we're aware of the ceiling. So we're aware of the things that we see, but we're also aware of our vision. Like you could say, well, the vision in my left eye is sharper than the vision in my right eye. How do you know that? You see it, you're aware of it. I hear better through the one ear than through the other ear. Right? I'm aware of my hearing. I can, right? And even the lack of hearing, there's a cricket living in our house these days. My wife tells me.
I'd love that.
Right? Yeah.
Good luck.
Yeah, they say it's good luck. I have to
Gonna bring
take
you money.
her word for it because I have trouble hearing certain frequencies of crickets at this stage in my life. Okay, so I'm aware of. So it's not that in a way you could say, well, then I've lost a certain amount of my awareness. But no, I'm aware of that lack. Okay, so even sleep is, as Rupert Spira, wonderful teacher Rupert Spira puts it, he said, sleep is not absence of awareness, it's awareness of absence. Okay? I don't know if that particular formulation is helpful to you or not, it might be. So it's all awareness. It's all awareness. Anything that's going on, the clearer we get, the clearer it becomes that anything that happens within our field of experience can be experienced clearly. So I'm here with clarity. I'm here with fuzziness. I'm here with distraction. I'm here with spaced out. You can experience that spaced outedness with great clarity. So, awakening, enlightenment, doesn't necessarily mean that you have perfect like some people are very just the way they're constituted, they tend to have a lot of clarity in certain fields and not in certain other fields. For instance, I have a terrible sense of direction. And 50 years of meditation has not improved it. And some people have, but I'm really good with like words on the page. And when I edit other people's stuff, when I was an English teacher marking kids' papers, I could see a misused semicolon from halfway across the room. Okay. Other people, in extreme case, someone who's dyslexic is going to not have that clarity because of in that particular application, because they're just something about their wiring. And they might become perfectly awakened, but it doesn't mean that they're going to suddenly necessarily lose their dyslexia and suddenly be able to spell words correctly and so forth. Okay. But on a deeper level, there is perfect clarity. That's the nature of awakening. There's clarity you see, but the things like the dyslexia, the bad sense of direction, all that is in front of that. That's part of what you see. That's part of what you're clear about. And so your clarity doesn't depend on this thing getting fixed up, because the clarity is back here, so to speak. And in the same way, your peace, that peace, that repose that Michelangelo's David personifies so beautifully. You don't. It's not that, okay, you're at peace now because now you can spell all the words right, or now you're at peace because now you can find your directions well. You're at peace even when you get lost.
You paid your bills.
Yeah, it's like, oh, I paid my bills. I paid the last
Payment.
the last payment. That's it. That's in. God, I used to teach this play. Death of a Salesman.
Yeah.
And
Yes.
this really biting, ironic commentary on the American dream. Just the struggling middle class, right? And part of that dream is owning your own home, paying it off. And finally, Willie Loman, the salesman who represents, just winds up destroying himself, and he's in his grave, and the last scene is at his funeral, and the last words are his wife, Linda, telling him in the grave that the house is paid off. And she says, these are the last words of the play: "We're free and clear. We're free and clear." So we tend to think of it that way. We make these kind of these goals, these mileposts. Okay, when I just finish off my degree work, then I'll exhale.
Right.
Then I'll feel freedom and repose, and I'll be David again. Right? When I retire, when I
Get the parking spot.
when I get the parking spot, the great parking spot,
Right.
at last,
Yeah.
right? And we keep setting up ourselves for the idea that is going to be, we keep making these rainbows and putting the pot of gold at the end of it,
Yeah.
and we're creating that. That's a conceptual framework. We set it up, and then it's like, I'm mixing metaphors here, but then it's like we're the donkey, and we put the carrot dangling in front of us so that we can chase it, and we'll never catch up to it, because then it's the next one and the next one.
Right.
But isn't part of what we're trying to do here to facilitate clarity, just through practice?
Mm-hmm.
So it is qualitatively different from fuzziness. It's qualitatively different from fuzziness.
Yeah, there's a tendency for everything, there's a tendency for all our mental functioning to become clearer. There is you don't need me to tell you that, and I'm sure you've experienced that through doing some practice there, right? But the primary thing and the universal thing is the clarity that we get, so to speak, back here. In other words, the clarity of experience of what am I? Who am I? What am I? What am I used to think I was a body. I used to think I was, but a body is a bunch of shapes and sounds and smells that are constantly changing. The body is an object of experience. I'm the experiencer. So I can't be the body. I used to think I was the mind, my opinions, my religion, my politics, but that's all stuff I experience. They're called thoughts. So more and more our clarity, our essential clarity becomes, and not just as an idea or a concept, that would be one more thought, but as the experience that I'm this boundless, empty, aware space within which all the experiences are experienced. I I'm awareness. I'm beingness. No color, no size, no shape, no texture, no nothing. Within which all the sizes and shapes and textures, all the somethings are experienced. I'm that which was missed. I'm like the empty space. I'm like the, you know, I got so caught up in the puppet show that we call life that I missed the puppet theater. You know, if you don't have the theater, if you don't have the little stage, you can't have the puppet show. The fact that there's a puppet show is the proof that there is a puppet theater, that there's a space for the puppets to perform in. And that's what meditation is. It's arresting back into that space so that it becomes enlivened by our attention. It becomes,
That's a good way to state it.
yeah, it becomes as it were alive, and actually nothing happens to it, nothing, it's a field of non-happening. But we become aware of it. We become aware that we're aware. We were empty, open, boundless, featureless awareness always, all the time, actually outside of time. But we were not aware of that awareness. We become aware of our awareness, consciously that. So that's the real basic essential clarity. And that's the one having which you're done. And the sense of there's something else crucial to be accomplished in this life, or else I'm not okay.
Right.
That goes away. That drops off. It doesn't mean you become unmotivated and passive and all that, because then you find, okay, now you're just not operating from neediness anymore. You're operating from fullness, from okayness. You're David, and okay, your actions fulfill the need of the time. There's a giant that needs slaying, I slay the giant. And there's various kinds of giants coming at us all the time. We take care of business. Busyness. We take care of the busyness, but we are not the busyness. We are the eternal non-busyness. Yeah. Indeed. Right. So our is guaranteed. That's where we have clarity. 100%, that's kind of the definition of enlightenment. Now, there is a tendency, so that's the one thing, and that's the essential thing. Now, this kind of byproduct, side effect thing, is there is a tendency, we mark that word tendency, for that quality of clarity to seep out into various areas of our activity, to sort of percolate through it. So that whatever you do, if you're Michelangelo, if you're a sculptor, then that quality, anything he did, he could be doing David, he could be doing a slave, that clarity just can't help but somehow come through. When you listen to Mozart, you only have to hear a line, 1 or 2 bars, you know it's Mozart. There's that wonderful kind of effervescent, joyous quality to it. It's like, his handwriting. It's like there's his signature. You can't define it, but you know it if you've, listened to a little Mozart. But that doesn't mean that Mozart could do sculpture or that Michelangelo could write music. We can, because of our own constitution, our own, in awakening our absolute clarity, our clarity on the level of the absolute is assured, but on the level of the relative, everyone's expression is going to be different. I'm pretty sure I'll never have a sense of direction. I could be wrong. And if so, I'll say great, fine. And if not, I'll say, okay, great, fine. I'll ask her. Is that making sense? Hearing that?
I guess getting back to what you were saying about being spaced out as opposed to clarity or something, it feels to me that, being clear somehow is being able to make distinctions into, like being aware of awareness, and feels to me like it's almost more active than being spaced out. You're focusing on you're allowing yourself, or you're putting yourself in some kind of position where you can actively understand awareness. Whereas being spaced out seems like you're not in that kind of, I mean, active isn't maybe the best word, but in that kind of active state, you're just kind of not, you're not really making distinctions. I mean, I guess I kind of look at it like there's like muscle and there's fat, and they're very distinct.
Yeah.
But then you have like Kobe beef or something, where the muscle and the fat is all
I'm
marbled.
sorry, you have what? What was
You know, Kobe beef, you know, where they
Oh,
kind of
Kobe beef.
Oh,
right, you know, where they mix
It's
all
marbled.
the fat
Marbled.
with the muscle, so you don't really know what you got.
Uh-huh.
And that kind of seems like that's maybe like the spaced outness, because there's no real distinction, as opposed to like, this is muscle and this is fat, you know, everything's kind of, and you sort of like, everything blends in and there's no distinctions, and it just feels very fuzzy and very spaced out. And
Yeah,
whereas awareness,
yeah, I
the
think-
sharpness of distinction.
I think there's something to what you're saying. I think we need to be clear here about whether we're talking about during meditation practice or during our activity in the outside world.
Meditation.
Yeah,
Okay,
meditate.
okay, so meditation, that was the original question, meditation. Okay, so in the context of meditation, the bottom line is, what do we do? What do we do? In other words, we don't evaluate or judge what's going on in our experience in meditation for the sake of evaluating and judging it. Because what's the point of that? Giving yourself a grade? I had a B plus, I had a B minus meditation. It could have been a B plus, but there was quite a bit of spacing out. So I only got a B minus. Okay, what do we do with that knowledge? I don't know. So to me, it's okay. What is the value is what is practical during what gives us some step of practice, something to do. What should we do during meditation? So I guess if in a given moment you're feeling, gee, I'm just really drowsy, and then you could, I don't know, shake your head, sit up straighter, take a few deep breaths, and maybe you'll feel some more clarity of your experience. Or maybe you doze off, go to sleep like I was doing a little while ago. That was great. And then when I woke up, I felt a little more clear. And I am finding, as we were discussing, that more and more when I fall asleep during meditation, especially during meditation, that the process of falling asleep is itself an object of experience that can be experienced clearly. And I think there's something valuable about that. I mean, I don't think, I know that there's something very valuable about that in getting clear on what's what. To have some clear experience of that presence of absence, that awareness of absence that we call sleep. That awareness, not only awareness of awareness, but awareness of what we might call unawareness, awareness of sleep. So we can, you know, you can do what you want. You can, okay, I feel that there's drowsiness, I feel that there's spaciness, try to shake it off. Okay, that's fine. That's one approach. Or you can, recognize what it is and experience, and that what you are is behind that, and experience that with clarity. You know, it's like, and there's kind of always those two approaches, and they run through the different traditions. For example, there are traditions of meditation where they say, when you sit like a stone, you don't move no matter what. A lot of Zen practice, for example, is like that. So you're sitting there, and there's there's an ant crawling across your knee, or you itch, or you something, and you just have to, find the piece that's behind that. And then the other traditions, and the Tibetans tend to be more like this, is fine, get rid of the ant, scratch the thing, blow your nose, you do whatever you need to do, and just have clarity about that. Whichever way you go, whatever you do, you can have clarity about it. I think another aspect of this, of what you bring up, is that there may be sometimes people who, they'll just sit there like I was at a place where I get my hair cut. I was there a few months ago, and the guy who cuts hair there was asking me something about what I do, and I said, well, I teach meditation, and he said, oh well, yeah, I meditate. I just I smoke some weed and just yeah, man, that's great meditation. And there might be something to that, but there is I think there's like kind of a cloudiness, an indulging of cloudiness, a kind of almost cultivating a dullness, a cloudiness, and calling that clarity, that's something different. But I guess on the really advanced course, you could smoke the weed or do anything, get drunk, and you'd be behind that. There's a famous, we have to end now, but there's a famous story about when Ram Dass, who is the American Richard Alpert from formerly of Harvard, who he and Tim Leary got thrown out of Harvard for their research in the early 60s with giving psychedelics, mushrooms and LSD to people, and they rubbed some of the administration the wrong way. And when Richard Alpert went to India and found his guru, Neem Karoli Baba, who later gave him the name of Ram Dass, and he's like, oh, finally I found the guru of my dreams, and this is the person who just, you meet him and you feel unconditional love, and he knows all about me, he reads my thoughts and all my deepest, darkest thoughts, and loves me anyway, and everything's great. And he's hanging around the ashram, but after a couple of days he starts thinking, yeah, well, what about all that far out stuff I experienced on acid? Where is that, and where is the guru in relation to that? And just as he's thinking that, he gets the word, the Maharaji, Neem Karoli Baba, the teacher. Maharaji wants to see you, and he calls him up. He says, you have some medicines in your car? And he brings out, he says, oh, you want vitamins? He says, no, the power medicines. Oh, the LSD. He says, yeah, LSD. And he gives, and Alpert had these like super powerful tabs of acid made up, like triple doses. And Baba says, yeah, okay, give me one. No, give me them all. And he takes the handful of acid and swallows it.
No.
Yeah. And Alpert thinks, well, this will be interesting. See what happens 45 minutes from now. And guess what happened? Nothing happened. Nothing happened. Nothing happened. They say that Socrates, who also, I think there's a lot of clues that Socrates was an awakened person. They say Socrates was never interested in drinking, and he was in a culture in Greece where everyone drank wine and got drunk. And he was never interested in drinking. But if you forced him to drink, he could drink everyone else under the table. No one had ever seen Socrates drunk. I think it's the same thing. When you're really unshakably here, everything else is there. If I'm sitting here and you throw a cup of hot tea on me, I'm going to feel it. But if I'm sitting in a hot tub, and if I, and you throw the tea at me, I'm not going to feel anything. It's not going to faze me. And awakening, enlightenment is you're perpetually in the hot tub of boundlessness. So, more of this 2 weeks from tonight. Tuesday night will be on YouTube as well. By the way, hi, what's your friend's name in India?
Debbie.
Debbie! Hi Debbie in India, thanks for joining us. And all the rest of you YouTubers. So 2 weeks from tonight, we'll be here live streaming again. And we have the silent retreat this Sunday. We'll be seeing some of you then. By the way, I toted them up today, there's one space remaining. So if someone still wants to sign up, you can talk to us afterward. So may all beings swiftly find themselves in the hot tub of awakening. Everyone in the soup, everyone in the pool, jump right in the water's fine. And thus, may the true happiness prevail and peace spontaneously prevail throughout this world and all possible worlds. Loka samasta sukhino bhavantu. Loka samasta sukhino bhavantu. Loka samasta sukhino bhavantu. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Okay, thank you. Oh, and I'm going to be the weekend of November 2nd, 3rd, 4th, New York City, New York Open Center, Friday night, November 2nd, and then Sunday, November 4th in the morning, I'm in Roselle Park, New Jersey, and Sunday evening, I'm in New Hope, Pennsylvania. All the details are on my website. Come see me.